Hi everyone, welcome to Difference Frames the World, a channel that offers a unique perspective. Please subscribe and turn on the notifications so you will not miss our videos every day. Today we celebrate the Chinese National Day, Beijing's 76th anniversary. We say it's Beijing's 76th birthday, not China's, because it is the birthday of the People's Republic of China, which was founded in October 1949, not that of China. China has a history spanning over 5,000 years, encompassing dozens of dynasties and kingdoms, including the Republic of China, which was overthrown by the Communists in 1949. In the past, few Chinese people lived to be 76 years old, and most Chinese dynasties did not last that long either. Only a few dynasties in ancient China were able to celebrate their 76th anniversaries. With a written history spanning around 3,000 years, China has experienced a fascinating journey marked by cycles of rise, peak, decline, and renewal. This rich and intricate pattern is not just a record of different ruling families, it is a vivid picture of Chinese civilization. Although many governments and people outside the Chinese mainland disagree with the communists in Beijing, we have to say it is still too early to predict when a color revolution will happen there. The Chinese government is not perfect, but it is still more effective and functions more efficiently than most governments in the world, including the one next to our door. Now, let us imagine there is a clock called the dynastic year. For the rulers in specific Chinese dynasties, what could the 76th year mean? Rather than just being a time for celebration, this 76th year prompts reflection. It marks an important moment between the strong foundations built by earlier generations and the potential stagnation that can occur in the later years of leadership, when the original goals may be challenged by the passage of time. Take the People's Republic of China as an example. Before Chairman Mao died in 1976, China was more akin to a traditional Chinese dynasty than a modern country, as one person could determine the destinies of other leaders and even the fate of the entire country, much like today's North Korea. We want to say the new China was born in 1978, when it opened its doors and became a part of the world. Luckily, Deng Xiaoping recognized that Chairman Mao remained the spiritual leader of the nation, unlike Khrushchev, whose removal of Stalin represented a top-down political and ideological shift aimed at breaking away from the previous era of terror. If Deng Xiaoping had followed Khrushchev's suit, and had publicly laid bare and condemned Chairman Mao's problems and mistakes, he would have significantly transformed the political landscape of the Chinese society, and China would have become another failed socialist country like the former Soviet Union. The Chinese people are fortunate to have had Deng Xiaoping as their leader. Otherwise, the People's Republic of China might not be able to celebrate its 76th anniversary. However, we must ask whether China will follow the path of the former Soviet Union, collapsing overnight, as many anti-China YouTube channels anticipate. Despite various problems and difficulties, today's China is a prosperous and powerful nation, exerting increasing influence over regional and international affairs and emerging as the only country that can compete with the United States. Let us now turn to China's core problems and explore what it should do next. In ancient China, the concept of a dynasty's legitimate rule was fundamentally tied to the mandate of heaven. Chinese emperors called themselves sons of the heaven. Unlike the notion of divine right in Europe, this idea represented a conditional contract between heaven and the ruler, implying that the ruler's authority was contingent upon their adherence to certain principles. Heaven granted its mandate to a just and virtuous leader who upheld order, fostered welfare, and aligned with the cosmic cycle. Indicators of this mandate could be seen in agricultural abundance, social stability, and military success. On the flip side, signs of a withdrawn mandate were glaringly obvious: natural disasters, peasant uprisings, economic downturns, and corruption within the court. The legislative rule of today's China is not from the heaven. Instead, the communists believe they represent the majority of the Chinese people, and no other parties or groups can keep China strong and wealthy as they do. The Constitution of China explicitly specifies that the leadership of the Communist Party of China is the most essential characteristic of socialism with Chinese characteristics. The Communist Party of China always represents the fundamental interests of the overwhelming majority of the Chinese people. Here, the Chinese people have replaced the heaven, becoming the deciding factor of China's legislative rule. If one day the overwhelming majority of the Chinese people do not think the communists stand for their interests, things will be different. As a result, millions of Chinese are employed to monitor and filter messages on the internet, ensuring that internal and external forces do not mislead the overwhelming majority of Chinese. A good example is Beijing's control over suspicious guesses about the mysterious death of Yu Menglong, or Alan Yu, a Chinese actor who died on September 11, 2025. 3 ladies were arrested for spreading rumors. In the foreseeable future, the majority of Chinese people will not have the opportunity to believe that another interest group can represent their interests. Even professionals in the most powerful intelligence agency can hardly offer any help in this regard. As long as there is not enough noise to challenge the Chinese government's legislative rule, it is difficult for anyone to predict China's collapse, as it may seem. Apparently, some U.S. officials know the trick, and that is why they want to separate the Chinese people from the Chinese government. Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, and a known advocate for a tougher stance on China, had to avoid China's airspace when visiting Asia recently. Due to Beijing's ambiguity regarding the potential lifting of sanctions previously imposed on him, Rubio could become the first American diplomat in his role unable to visit China. On September 30, 2025, local time, he, on behalf of the United States of America, congratulated the people of China on the 76th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China, in a statement released by the U.S. State Department. The United States wishes the people of China health, happiness, prosperity, and peace in the year ahead, he added, without expressing any good wishes for the Chinese government. The communists will not disappear even though he does not wish they will continue to prosper and thrive. Still, the Chinese government will have a hard time maintaining the stability and prosperity if it does not take pains to make changes now. A person is considered old when they are 76, so is a country, as we just mentioned. China will not continue its glory if it is unwilling to reform. In history, many dynasties did not live up to 76 years, or declined when they reached that age. Still, there were exceptions. It is natural that in the early years of a new administration, the dynasty emerges from strife forged in necessity. A charismatic leader, often from the wreckage of a previous regime, unites the realm through military might and moral authority. For instance, the Qin dynasty standardized the Chinese characters, currency, and measurements. The Ming dynasty's Hongwu emperor drove out the Mongols and reinstated Han Chinese sovereignty. In the Qin dynasty, the Kangxi emperor recovered Taiwan and expanded the empire's borders. The early years of a dynasty were typically the golden era, when lands were redistributed, corrupt officials were ousted, and grand public works, such as canals, walls, and irrigation systems, were either repaired or initiated as the communists did in the 1950s. As the dynasty progressed into its middle age, the revolutionary fervor began to diminish, replaced by the inactivity of long-standing institutions. The examination system, initially a means of recruiting the best talent, can morph into a rigid and formulaic process that stifles innovation. A class of scholar officials becomes entrenched, more invested in preserving their own family's status and wealth than in serving the state. In contemporary China, for instance, few ordinary people can rise to high-ranking positions without a solid social background. National leaders are usually the offspring of the first-generation leaders. As in history, today's wealth, such as that derived from land sales, begins to concentrate in the hands of a powerful elite, circumventing laws intended to prevent this disparity, at the expense of homebuyers and real estate companies. China's previous billionaires in the real estate sector, in jail or not, are just tools to accumulate wealth for interest groups. In China's big cities, many people had to abandon their properties to the bank, and Wang Jianlin, who was once ranked as the wealthiest Chinese businessman in the world 10 years ago, has recently become a defaulter. History will repeat itself. If China does not undergo profound reform, it will face significant trouble, similar to that of ancient dynasties. Although the 76th year isn't the end, it's the tipping point when deep-seated structural problems become impossible to ignore, leading to visible crises. During a dynasty's prime, an efficient bureaucracy and state granary system would manage relief efforts in the event of a natural disaster, such as a famine or flood. However, this is not the case when the dynasty becomes old. In the first year of the pandemic, China effectively stopped the spread of the virus. However, its zero-tolerance policy in the second and third years severely impacted the economy. Hundreds of millions of Chinese are still recovering from that economic shock. If another catastrophe were to occur, and the paradigm of a few heads still dominated the country, things might become even more difficult. In short, the 76th anniversary is not the end, but China needs a political reform to avoid impending dangers. As its former Prime Minister Wen Jiabao said in 2012, China must press ahead with both economic reform and political structural reform, especially reform in the leadership system of its party and country, to avoid historical tragedies. Here comes the moment when the matter gets critical.